Good evening again. I'm Harry Reasoner, here with Barbara Walters and Howard K. Smith. Right now, at this stage of the election night, a little after 10 o'clock in New York, 29% of the precincts in this country have reported, and Jimmy Carter holds a 52% to 48% lead over Gerald Ford in the popular vote, 12.5 million to 11.75 million. Howard has a new projection on one of our states, I believe.
State of Louisiana. ABC News projects that Carter has captured Louisiana by a comfortable margin. That comes to me as a surprise, partly because I've lived there a lot of my life, was born there. It's a very conservative state, the most unpredictable one. It's voted Republican or the third-party candidates for a long time. And the governor was lukewarm for Carter. His wife was outright for Ford, so it's a surprise. But we'll talk about that later.
Right now, that in the electoral vote column, according to our projection, means that Jimmy Carter has now accumulated 197 electoral votes out of the 270 needed for nomination, or for election, and Gerald Ford has 61. Noting, as we have throughout the evening, that it was expected that Jimmy Carter would have the early lead in electoral votes, and that doesn't necessarily mean it won't be a close night. In fact, all indications are it will be a close night. We've got some interesting Senate results.
Can I give one more projection before that?
You may indeed.
Okay. We have North Dakota, and North Dakota had been one of those states that was considered a toss-up, but it's gone to Ford by a close margin. So that's another state coming in.
We were speaking earlier of important Senate results, and one of them was certainly in Maryland, where Paul Sarbanes, who was one of the major figures in the Watergate hearings 2 years ago, is now, I think, just about making a victory statement. He has been projected by ABC News as the winner.
I want to say to the thousands of people across the state who have worked in this campaign, how grateful Christine and I are for your help. You took us into your homes. You gave us countless hours of your time and of your effort. And we're deeply grateful to all of those men and women and boys and girls, young people, all across this state who helped us in this campaign. I think we have a chance to move this country forward. I look forward to the opportunity of serving in the United States Senate with Governor Carter in the White House as President of the United States.
That was Paul Sarbanes, the projected winner, and now claiming victory in Maryland Senate race. And for more on the Senate races, let's go to Frank Reynolds.
Yes, Harry, Paul Sarbanes is just your ordinary Greek boy who washed dishes in his father's restaurant and then went on to Harvard Law and Oxford. And now he's going to the United States Senate. We have a projection to make in the state of Vermont. Senator Robert Stafford, the Republican incumbent, according to ABC News, will be the eventual victor there over Governor Thomas Salmon, and by a comfortable margin. This was one of those races that a good many people thought might go either way because Governor Salmon is popular. He's obviously demonstrated vote-getting ability throughout the state. He had a very tough primary race, however, and that seemed to damage him. And then Stafford hasn't made any enemies and apparently a lot of friends in Vermont at the time he's been serving the state, both in the House and finally in the Senate, and now he has been reelected. And in the state of Wisconsin, this one was certainly expected, the eventual result. ABC News now projects Senator William Proxmire, the winner by a wide margin tonight over Stanley York. Senator Proxmire never had any serious competition, any serious doubts about winning this race. Not only does he run well politically, you know, in his home state of Wisconsin, he also runs to work in Washington. He can be seen bouncing up and down Connecticut Avenue and heading up toward Capitol Hill. For his pains, he has been mugged a couple of times. It's always puzzled me why a mugger would pick on a man wearing a sweatsuit galloping down the street, but they've gone after him a couple of times. Anyway, he'll be able to continue his running. And in Vermont, well, I gave you Vermont, Tennessee is still too close to call, much too close to call. Even with 77% of the precincts in, it is still 53% to 47% for Republican incumbent Bill Brock, but it is very, very close. And so is Ohio, which may loom very large tonight in the presidential picture. Metzenbaum, the Democratic candidate, Howard Metzenbaum, in a rematch with Senator Robert Taft, 51% to 48%. We have 33% of the precincts in, but it is too close to call. Ohio is one of those states that it's always wise to approach with caution. As a matter of fact, it was 12 years ago that Robert Taft accepted congratulations and made his victory statement. He was then running against Senator Stephen Young. The networks couldn't get Senator Young to come out and make a statement of concession. He got in his car and drove back to Washington, and by the time he got there, he had won. So everybody's going to be very cautious about Ohio tonight. That, I believe, is it. Yes, Wisconsin, Tennessee, and Ohio. And that's the story on the Senate right now.
Thank you, Frank. It's probably about time, at a little bit after 10 New York time, to kind of figure out where we are. Well, we know where we are. ABC News has projected 197 electoral votes for Carter and 64 for Ford. So far, things have been going almost as expected, almost as the pollsters figured they would go, which means it's going to be very close. If you were looking for good news, and then you were in the Jimmy Carter camp, you would say you were glad you had New York, and you would say probably that you were especially glad that you had Missouri and Louisiana. If you were looking for good news, if you were in Gerald Ford's camp, you'd like New Jersey. What else would you like, Howard?
Connecticut.
Indiana.
Yep.
But Indiana you'd expect.
Mm-hmm.
Connecticut.
Connecticut would be the unusual one, or the one that might give some kind of an indication. So both sides at this point have had some good news.
I'll tell a secret to the public about what we've been doing. We've been rehearsing this with figures that we've falsified on purpose, the things we thought would happen. And you know that all of those things have come true so far tonight. Everything we said would happen has happened.
Why didn't we just tape it on Saturday then, Howard? We wouldn't have to do it tonight.
We still do have some places of many states that we have not heard from, still want to keep an eye on. In the South, for example, Mississippi. Mississippi has, with its southern tendencies, would want Jimmy Carter, but it has a Republican tradition. We don't know how that's going to go. It's too close to call at this point. New Mexico, as we go out west, which has voted for the president in every election since it's entered the Union. We still don't know what the story is in New Mexico. 43% of the precincts in, and it's Ford 53% to Carter 47%. Oklahoma we still can't call yet, too close. Colorado is too close. And, of course, that big prize of California, we have none of the precincts reported yet.
The polls haven't closed there yet, and there are a number of states still up for grabs. We've got a map that gives a kind of a look at how things have been going so far. The dark blue, the darker shade, have gone for Carter. The lighter ones have gone for Ford. But except for New York, Ford has gotten the big one in New Jersey. And at the moment, as we've noted, it is about as predicted, which means that nobody knows yet. You think of the big states that we don't know about yet. Michigan, Texas, Wisconsin, which so far is going in a very interesting way. 10% of the vote in, a rather substantial lead for Jimmy Carter, 55% to 43%, which wasn't necessarily expected. But I don't know where those votes are from. That may be the big cities where Lou Harris's national model indicates Carter is doing very well tonight.
You know, if you look at that same map, you notice that the whole solid South and all the border states have gone for Carter, with the exception of Virginia and Mississippi, which we have no results on so far, if you count Texas as being in the Southwest, not in the South.
Should I just tell you what Mississippi is at this point? With 26% of the precincts in, Mississippi has 52% for Carter and 47% for Ford.
Well, we are now in the situation in the evening where we're going to be getting some rather substantial results from what Mr. Smith so charmingly calls the Route 30 states. I call the Lincoln Highway states. And there'll be some decisive things happening. Coming up next, more of our continuous election coverage right after this. As we noted, we have a new and very useful tool tonight, which is a sort of a national model that Lou Harris has put together for ABC, and which sometimes can show us something that is happening by region or by group before we have definitive results in a given state. And Lou has now seen enough of the national model, I think, to have some things to say.
Harry, I think we have something definitive here to say for the first time tonight. In the popular vote, in our model, with over 50% of the vote in, Jimmy Carter has a 51 to 48% lead, a 3-point lead. Now, that's not a lot. When you look at it on a regional basis, and there's enough in from these regions to draw some conclusions, He's ahead in the East by 52 to 47%, a 5-point lead. Only behind in the Midwest, which was supposed to be Ford's strong region, by 50 to 48%. Holds a commanding lead in the border states. And you notice all the states and the border states that have come in, Carter has been projected the winner. He's winning there 56 to 44%. And the Deep South, he's just sweeping 67 to 33%. What this indicates now, as far as our national model goes, is that the burden has gone almost entirely over to Gerald Ford to win all the close ones to still be in this race. It's getting very close to the point where Carter could wrap this up if a few of the big states were to fall his way. And I mean states such as Texas, Illinois, and Pennsylvania. Then this election would be over. So it may not be quite as long an evening as perhaps we'd anticipated.
And when Robert Strauss said that the Democrats only had to win 2 of the 6 big states and the Republicans had to take them all, exaggerating. But I think a little earlier, Sam Donaldson or Tom Jarrell said if the Republicans lose 2 of the 5 remaining big states, they're out, they're in trouble?
Harry, I think that's right. What you begin to see is that Gerald Ford, while winning in the Midwest, is not winning enough yet. And he's going to have to win those by very close margins and get all the breaks. That's the key. If he doesn't get the breaks in the Midwest, then even if Ford goes on and takes the West, it simply won't be enough.
I want to give one projection just while we're at it, which may not change things very much. It's an almost predictable ABC projection. In Utah, President Ford by a wide margin. That's 4 electoral votes. In Utah, we project to President Ford. Lou, what you were saying is this is not quite what was predicted in the polls. Is it the undecided that's made this difference? Can you tell that yet?
No, even more interesting, Barbara, is that turnout for all of those early reports, and we have half the vote of the country in our model, turnout was just not running any higher than there was 4 years ago. There wasn't this great surge, whether it's New York or other places where you've got all these reports. What is happening is that Carter is able to eke out about a point or 2 on a uniform basis across the board, more than, let's say, the polls showed, and is winning a number of these states on a close basis. But so far tonight, all the breaks have gone to Jimmy Carter and not to Gerald Ford. Now, the calls, the projections on the big states have yet to come, and they are very close. But as I say again, the burden of proof is now on Gerald Ford to get all the breaks almost in order to win this election.
Thank you, Lou. We've got, I think, an interesting and important Senate projection now. And Frank Reynolds?
Yes, Harry. In the state of Tennessee, the only Republican incumbent who is up for re-election this time, Senator William Brock, apparently is not going to win re-election. ABC News now projects that his Democratic opponent, James Sasser, the former Democratic state chairman, making his first bid for elective office, will unseat Senator William Brock. With 81% of the precincts in now, we have Brock trailing 53 to 47%. Apparently, the plurality that he expected to get from East Tennessee was simply not big enough to overcome the margin that Sasser rolled up in the normally Democratic areas of Nashville and Memphis and West Tennessee. Brock had always said that he was going to be in trouble if Jimmy Carter ran very well in Tennessee. Well, Jimmy Carter has run quite well in Tennessee. This is a state where Sasser, who was one of Carter's original supporters long back when people were talking about Jimmy Who, Sasser has talked a great deal about the Carter connection in Tennessee. And apparently it was enough to help Sasser win that victory. And according to ABC News, he will take Senator Brock's place in the Senate. Brock is a one-term senator. He defeated Albert Gore 6 years ago. Harry?
Thank you, Frank. Coming up next, more of our continuous election coverage right after this. Well, the vote has been counted and reported in 1/3 of the country's precincts now, 33% of them. Jimmy Carter holds a 51% to 48% lead over Gerald Ford, 14.5 million to 13.5 million. There's one job that I envied during the conventions and one job that I envy tonight. It's Jim Kincaid in Plains, Georgia, holding down a rocking chair. He's got, right now, he's got somebody with him, so he's rocking harder and may even work up an interview. Jim?
Well, the reason I'm rocking, Harry, is because that's the only way to keep warm. And as you can see, the crowd that Jimmy Carter drew here earlier this evening is staying on. Indeed, Plains is about 10 times its normal population just now. And they are choosing to accept every ray of hope as an absolute definite omen that their band will win. I have with me Billy Carter, the man's brother, and his eyes are a little red-rimmed from lack of sleep, but aside from that, how you doing, Billy?
Fine, Jim. I thought I told you earlier, tomorrow's a national holiday in Plains for Carter's Warehouse, Carter's Farm, Carter's Service Station. We're closing down. It's paid holiday for everybody here. Because Jimmy Carter's going to be the next president, no doubt about it.
You're pretty sure of that?
I'm sure of it. It looks better every minute.
Billy, what about this crowd?
I think it's a great crowd. How in the hell they got the Plains, I'll never know, but they're here.
Come from several other states, of course, but are you interested now in seeing about what plans can be made for Plains' future in the event this all comes about?
I would like to be, but I think Plains is already going to hell. I'm going to let it go.
Okay, well, you heard it straight from the man. He runs a filling station and the warehouse and all the rest of it. We'll just have to check with him later. Jim Kincaid in Plains, Georgia.
Thank you, Jim. Plains, I think, would take either victory or defeat calmly tonight. It's a town that is pretty hard to shake up. We're waiting still on the Midwest and on some pretty important races, which, according to Lou Harris, might one way show us it couldn't be all that long a night.
Harry, I'd like to point out the state of Illinois right now with 21% of the precincts. I wonder if we can throw that Illinois scorecard up. 21% of the precincts in. Carter leads 55% to 44%. And the interesting thing is, all those votes come from downstate, which is conservative, Ford territory. Chicago's own vote has not yet come in. They're still waiting for Cook County's vote, where Carter will be strong.
Particularly interesting because the Republican candidate for governor, Jim Thompson, won easily with those votes from the downstate. Speaking of governors, I think we should get a quick report from Ann Compton on what's happening in the governor races.
Harry, there are two that we should report on right now. ABC is projecting in North Dakota the incumbent Democrat Arthur Link, the fiddler player who has never lost an election. Link, ABC is projecting him in a close margin. It was supposed to be wider than that. Link in a close margin in North Dakota. The other state we'd like to project is Rhode Island, a state with the heaviest Catholic population in the country. That, too, a Democratic state with the ABC projecting the Lieutenant Governor, Joseph Garrahy, over Republican James Taft. And what has the makings of an upset tonight, it is still too close to call the state of Missouri. Now, that was supposed to be the state where Republican incumbent Christopher Bond was going to do just fine. But his opponent, Joseph Teasdale, a lawyer, had saved all of his campaign money to make one last desperate run in the last 3 weeks of the campaign with a media blitz. Well, Teasdale so far has held Bond well below 50% of the vote, and it could well be that that Christopher Bond will lose. Harry?
And that's the National Election Night story at 22 minutes after the hour.
The good news